And this is Angie Nelson with the Montana Department of Agriculture. Thank you for participating in the webinar today. As I stated before, it will also be recorded and stored on the Growth Through Agriculture website that's available at gta.mt.gov for future reference. At the end of the webinar, we will unmute for all participants to ask questions. So I encourage you to take notes of any questions you have and hold those for the end. All right, so we're going to switch over here to slideshow. Okay. So the goal today is to help you determine whether your project, or if you're a food and ag center or an economic development person helping another applicant, whether a project would be a good fit for Growth Through Agriculture funding. And also we're hoping to provide tips and tools to help you fill out a complete GTA application. We'll provide a program overview. This is a state-funded program. It was created by the Montana legislature. It's been around since 1987, and the funding for the program was continued by the 2019 legislature. The purpose set forth by the legislature for the program is to strengthen and diversify Montana's agricultural industry through loans and grants to assist the development of innovative agricultural business organizational improvements and the commercialization and marketing of new agricultural products in order to keep pace with a transforming agricultural industry and to create new jobs and expand small business opportunities. So keep this in mind as we get to some of the next areas looking at an application. There are two types of funding available. There's grants up to $50,000, loans available for up to a max of $100,000. The average award over the last few years is about $25,000 to $30,000. The deadline this year is November 1st at 2 p.m. And this is the second year we'll be offering an optional material verification check. Basically, if folks submit their application by this deadline, staff will review and verify that you've included all items necessary for your application to be sent to the council for review. It's completely optional, but we heavily encourage it, and had about half the applications came in at this time, and we were able to let them know if there was something that, maybe they accidentally attached a blank Excel document instead of a required form, or if they had submitted something incorrectly. So that's a good option to keep in mind. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, should I apply for a Growth Through Ag grant or loan? So here's some questions to ask yourself. Does the project primarily going to add value to Montana's agricultural products? And does it have the prospects to create and or retain jobs? So who's eligible to apply? There's a wide variety of potential applicants. It can be businesses, individuals, or a sole proprietorship, public and private agencies and organizations, educational institutions, and local governments. So let's look at some of the eligible uses of funds. What can you use Growth Through Ag grant or loan funds for? These are some of the things you can use it for. This is including, it's not an exhaustive list, equipment, consultant services, that could be hiring an engineer or someone to do a facility layout, could be marketing services, that type of thing. Travel, advertising and promotion, supplies and materials, communication and data processing. I will tell you that in the past few years, about 90% of the awards have been for equipment purchases. Production equipment, often this is the processing equipment that is actually adding value to the agricultural product, or perhaps freezer storage space, those types of things that are needed to keep the operation going and expand it. It can also fund construction costs related to startup and expansion, those types of things. Okay, so let's talk about ineligible uses of funds. Reimbursement for through the grant or loan program cannot be requested for costs incurred prior to the application. So this year that would be costs incurred prior to November 1st of 2019. Typically, salaries and wages are ineligible. Food, unless specifically designated, most of the time food is ineligible. Institutional overhead or other indirect costs, and the funds cannot be used for political purposes or lobbying. Okay, so if you've gone through those questions and you've decided that your project is a good fit, before you apply, here's some of the steps we recommend. Contact the Food and Ag Development Network. You can find their contact information at www.foodandag.mt.gov. You can also contact me and my contact information. I will send it to you. We recommend you work with the Food and Ag Centers or the Small Business Development Centers to develop financial projections. And we recommend that you register for a username and password on our online application site, which can be found at fundingmt.org. So, when you're looking at putting your project together, we recommend that you contact one of these organizations, Food and Ag Centers, Small Business Development Centers, or your local economic development organization, or and possibly legal counsel regarding business planning, financial planning assistance, and access and information about other grant and loan funding opportunities. Especially the Food and Ag Development Centers, they try to keep up on other federal grant programs. There might be loan guarantee funds, funds at other agencies. So there may be something else that would be a good resource for your project. They can also talk to you about regulatory issues that might be associated with your business or project. Perhaps there's some food safety issues if you're creating a food product, or issues with DEQ, that type of thing. So they can help you figure those out. And they can help you identify and work through solutions on those. May also need to work with the County Sanitarian, Department of Livestock, DPHHS, or with the Department of Ag on organic certification, commodity dealers licensing, etc. Also may need to look and see if workers' compensation insurance is needed, especially if you're a startup, and make sure that your business structure is appropriate. Has your business been incorporated? If so, is it registered with the Secretary of State's office? And if you're a sole proprietor using an assumed business name or a DBA, please be sure that the assumed business name is also registered with the Secretary of State's office, and I have their website listed right there. So as part of your business planning activities, be sure to identify the activities you're going to complete, determine your scope of work, make sure you know your costs for the project, get some cost estimates, and identify your sources of matching funds. Let's look a little bit further into matching funds. what can you use to satisfy the dollar-for-dollar match requirement? There's a dollar-for-dollar match required. So let's say you were requesting $10,000 in growth through ag funding. You would need to have $10,000 in other sources of funds identified to meet the match requirement. Some of these sources could be private match from your business or another business entity. Could be something new we've seen is more crowdsource or Kickstarter fundraisers. Loans from bank or a local economic development organization. Commodity checkoff funds, federal funds, that could include the USDA Value Added Producer Grants, Economic Development Administration, or any other federal funds. One note is match cannot come from another state grant. So project costs could include other state programs like Big Sky Trust Fund or worker training grants. However, those other state funds would not count towards the dollar-for-dollar match requirement. For example, if there was a $30,000 project, you could request $10,000 growth reg funds. Perhaps you had $10,000 in funds from your own business and requested $10,000 from worker training grant program. That would be fine because the $10,000 in state grant funds were not the matching funds for growth reg. Okay. I would say that cash is preferred. There are in-kind contributions can be accepted. They're maximum of $25 an hour. In-kind match is not typically as competitive and cannot make up more than 10% of the match for the project. Okay, so what's next? After you've registered for a username and password, you've contacted Food and Ag Center and or Small Business Development Center, business name is registered with the Secretary of State. You need to read through the Growth Through Ag program background, websites listed here on the screen. If you haven't contacted Food and Ag Development staff, here's the website to find their contact information. And if you decide to apply, go to fundingmt.org and click on the search here. And follow the instructions for a new application. So let's transition on how to fill out the application. The application is available at this website, fundingmt.org, as we've stated. This is what the screen will look like when you get there. Here's the steps, kind of 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and register online, get your username and password, read the funding opportunity and program background, register with the Secretary of State, prepare your financial statements and your key financial assumptions, submit your credit check release form. That one does not get submitted with the online application, so you can mail, fax, or follow the instructions on the form to do secure e-file transfer. That does not, you don't need to wait until the application deadline. You can send that in at any time. And then finally, submit your online application. To register online, go to fundingmt.org and click register here. Here's the registration form. Enter the business names exactly as they appear on the Secretary of State's website. Staff that is responsible for approving these will verify that they are registered business name. If not, we'll send you an email back to clarify. If you're using an assumed business name, enter the full legal name and then the assumed business name. For example, Mary Smith, DBA Mary's Farm, so that we can find that information and make sure you're registered appropriately. Once your registration has been approved, your username and password will be emailed to you. Note registration approval might take 1 to 2 days, as we have a lot of registration requests, and we do have to verify these items. Okay, next steps. So please do not share usernames and passwords. We like to see each person working on your grant should have their own username and password. If you have a grant writer helping you, please email or have them email me at gta@mt.gov, email listed on the screen, to request that they would be granted access to your application. We'll connect them with your organization and provide some instructions to do the final step to add them. Then once in the application, you can go into your application and go into additional contacts, and that person's name will show up. You can click on their name and save. So now that you have a username, password, the other folks with you that are working on your application have registered, click on search here and go through the steps. You'll see growth through agriculture listed in the funding opportunities. And it looks like we have a duplicate slide here, so if you haven't registered otherwise. Then to log in, put your user ID and password in. If you don't see a username or password, check your junk email folders or spam filters. Otherwise, you can email gta.mt.gov if you did not receive a username and password. Okay, so once you log in, this is what you'll see on your screen. If you're going to notice some navigational buttons at the top right. So at the top left, you see menu. When you head over to the right, you see back, print, add, delete, edit, and save. Some of the other things we'll be talking about is where you can mark as complete and where you can submit. If you come to a screen in the system that does not appear to allow you to edit, try selecting the Add button or Edit in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and then read the instructions on each page carefully. Okay, so if you're working on an application, go ahead and click on Funding Opportunities and click on the AGR GTA November 1st, 2019 funding opportunity, the current one. Read the full funding opportunity details, the attached program background, and when you're ready, click Start a New Application where the green arrow is pointing. First form you come to is the General Information form. They will ask you for primary contact, select that from the drop-down. Enter a brief but descriptive project title. I'd recommend drafting that before you log in. Something that's not very long. You have a maximum of 250 characters, but I'd recommend being much shorter than that. And then select the appropriate organization from the drop-down box below. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the project title. How important is the project title? Well, this is the first impression that the reviewers will see, and they will read it every time they go back to review and reference your application. Recommend you use your company name. It'll provide recognition and repetition. You can also use your region. Here's some examples. Organic Grains Co-op, Expansion Project, New Processing Facility in Havre. Montana Meat and Bread Co., pairing up what Montana does best in the Golden Triangle. Or Jones & Jones Co., expanding storage and shipping for Montana Pulses. Or Gooseberries, producing and marketing low-carb berries for the 21st century. See how these are simple, straightforward, and there's some interest and excitement. Make sure the review panel knows what you're doing and is excited to read the rest of your application after reading your title. I don't recommend making a full sentence or doing multiple sentences. You have plenty of time to do that in your application. Okay, so once you've completed that one, it'll take you to the rest of the application forms. The next form states application preparation checklist. Go ahead and click on that. Bring up this checklist. So you're going to complete the checklist, and if your answer is no to any of the questions regarding business preparation, be sure to contact a Food and Ag Center or local economic development staff to discuss what that is, if it's that you haven't completed financial projections or a business plan, cash flow statements, those types of things, or marketing strategy. Contact those folks and work on finishing those pieces. Okay, so partway down the application preparation checklist, it's going to ask you about matching funds. When it states prior match, match can be considered up to 12 months from the application deadline. So this year, the application deadline is November 1st of 2019. That means you can go all the way back to November 1st of 2018 to consider potential matching expenditures that could be eligible. So think about what you've spent from November 1st of 2018 through now on your project, and if any of those are related to the project you're applying for, document those and add those up. If you are looking at prior match, then you're going to want to check the yes button and put down from what date you are requesting that matching funds be counted. That date should not be before November 1st of 2018. You might have to come back to this to answer and make a note of that. And if you're looking at this webinar in next year, just make sure you always double check our website for the date funds can be considered. Okay. At the bottom of the checklist, it's going to talk about a personal guarantee. All right, so personal guarantee is the person that is personally going to be responsible for making sure that the funds would be expended properly, the reports would be done on time, and essentially personally guaranteeing that they would pay out of pocket if something was done incorrectly on the grant. So they need the name of the person, address, city, state, zip code, and that would be, if awarded, would be the person that would personally guarantee the contract. The next one is the credit check release form. There's a link to the form just in the instructions there. Fill that out and indicate that you understand that you will comply with submitting the credit check release. And again, note, it's okay to send that early. So when you get to this, maybe just fill that out and submit it now, either by mail, fax, or through the secure e-file transfer system. And those instructions are on the form itself. Okay. All right, so when you're done with the first form, the application checklist, go ahead and hit save. If you leave this page without saving, you will lose your data, so make sure you hit save before you leave each form. As you're navigating through all the forms in this application, you'll note that many of the screens have a mark as complete or go to applications link. If you click mark as complete, then you know that you have finished that form. If it's not complete, it'll kind of create a checklist for you later that you can verify which ones you need to go back and look at. However, before you complete your application, you will have to mark each section as complete. So as you can see here, here's the list of applications, and only the first one here is checked for the general information that's marked as complete, so you know that you need to go through the other forms. Click on the blue application form names, complete each form. As I stated, keep track of all the forms that are marked as complete, and then click on the application details. It'll bring it all up as one full document you can scroll through. and review it. You can even print it, take a look and read through, and then go back, make any edits. And then once you're ready and all of these have been marked as complete, you can hit the submit button. Okay, so let's go to the next application form. This one is the brief project summary, which is exactly what it says. It's giving the council review members a brief summary of your project. So you're going to start about the project information. You're going to select your project type. So it could be an expansion, could be commercialization, could be a promotional project. If the options here are not applicable, then you can list other project type in the box below. Then you're going to go to agricultural category. If this is food processing, if it's agritourism, if it's a dairy, that type of thing. Again, if the agricultural categories listed do not apply to your project, go ahead and fill that in other agricultural category. If for some reason your project is multiple are appropriate, you can hit the control key on your keyboard and then use your mouse to select multiple items. One more thing, and then you'll need to include your project location and your county. So project location would be, I'm 2 miles northwest of Lewistown, or I'm on Reserve Street in Missoula, or I am, 50 miles, north of Circle, Montana. So next, you're going to go to the actual brief project summary. You're going to talk about, you're going to click on your proposed use of funds. Again, you can select more than one using the control button, and then you're going to give us your summary of your project. When you look at your summary, it should be brief. There's a $5,000 character limit. That's actually quite a bit. That's probably 3/4 of a page. Please describe your request in the first 2 sentences. Include who's applying, for how much, what the proposed activity is, and why. Then once you hit save on this form, you'll see 2 additional fields. If they say 0 and you're trying to fill those in, just want to let you know those amounts will autofill from your budget form. So once you've completed the budget form and have clicked save, then this will be updated. Okay? All right, so let's go back to those first 2 sentences and give you an example. Here's an example of a bakery. Mary's Innovative Bakery is requesting $30,000 to purchase equipment necessary to expand its product line from muffins to cakes. The products are made with Montana-grown whole grains and pulse crops to meet increasing regional and national demand for their products. Okay, in this 2 sentences, we know who's applying, how much, what they're going to use it for, what the agricultural impact is, and why this is going to be impactful. Okay, so think about that in your project. If you can narrow it down to 2 sentences that gives a good summary, you're giving the reviewers a good sense of that, as well as giving us as staff a good synopsis if someone asks us what the application is to provide them. All right, and then you'll notice at the bottom of the brief project summary, there's if you look where this arrow says, it says $5,000 character max. Throughout the application, you'll see places where there's a max character limit. Give you some tips on that. If you draft your narratives in Word or other software, you can save, cut, and paste into WebGrants. And if you're in Word, you can go to the Review tab and you can click on Word Count. And the character count will come up. So there are also other character count tools available online. So if you're trying to see if something has a 500 character limit, you'll want to look at that. Okay, let's move on to the general criteria for funding. This is the criteria that was provided by the Montana legislature and is in the program guidelines. The general criteria for funding: does the project primarily add value to Montana's agricultural products? Has prospects for commercial success given current personnel, experience, and resources of the applicant? Project has the prospects to create and or retain jobs in Montana. Primarily processes or adds value to Montana's agricultural products currently produced or potentially produced in the state, and has the management structure to allow the Agriculture Development Council to reasonably conclude the applicant will comply with ongoing reporting and monitoring activities. So these criteria are actually going to be corresponding with fields in the application. So the first criteria is primarily adds values to Montana's agricultural products. That's listed, and underneath is a text box for you to fill that in. So address in this form how your project meets that criteria for funding. One note is that items 1 and 4 are very similar. If you get to the fourth box and you have something additional to state about primarily processes or adds value to the agricultural products, that's great. If you don't have anything additional for that field, then you can reference back to the first value added box. So I had a couple of questions on that last year, so I did want to note that. Okay, deliverables. Next, you're going to want to list the items that will be provided to the department, if funded, to demonstrate completion of your project. This could include sales, jobs, photos of production fields, sales records, etc. So just give that some thought of what you would report back on, provide a physical copy of that type of thing. Next is the Montana Commodities form. So first it says annual volume under the first field. So you're going to enter the current annual volume and value of the Montana grown or raised commodities used by your business. That could be your first year of production if you're a startup, or if you are a current business, so that might only be 6 months of production. But if you are an ongoing business, provide your latest year's annual volume and the value of that. Then you're going to do a 5-year projection of the volume. That could be bushels, pounds, it could be head of cattle, it could be gallons of milk, whatever the grown or raised commodities. And when I say commodities, I've had a couple of questions about that. That is not a traditional in thinking like wheat or barley. This is anything grown or raised in Montana. But instead of saying anything grown or raised in Montana every time, we're just going to say these Montana commodities, okay? Note the character count, limitations, 5,500 characters, and stick within those. Then they're going to ask you to briefly describe your current and targeted future markets, marketing strategies. If you don't know this yet, that's okay. Contact your Food and Ag Development Center to discuss and talk about what marketing strategies might be most effective for your project. Next is business information. You're just going to fill out, pretty straightforward, describe the business information. A couple notes: whole numbers only, no decimals, and no ranges. For example, in the except for the dollar amounts, you can put that. But if it requests the increase in full-time jobs, you just need to put 3 jobs or 4 jobs. You can't put 3-4 jobs, like 3 to 4 jobs. You need to put in a whole number there. It'll ask you for your anticipated 2-year financial results of the project. take a look at that and make sure those match your financial projections that you're submitting for your proposal. The next form is going to ask you about the key personnel on your project. In order to add names, you're going to click on that green Add plus button at the top right hand of the screen, and you're going to provide the name, title, and the important information about that person. These could be the owners. It does not have to be a company employee. You could have a technical advisor included. You need to include at least one person minimum in this list, but you could have several or just a few. Okay, so now we're going to, for each additional person, you're going to click Add, put their name, their title, and their experience and ability. Note the character limit, and to add additional personnel, keep clicking Add, fill them out, and save for each additional person. And then the same thing on the objectives form, click Add for a data entry form to appear. Enter the objectives such as building facility or purchase equipment. Provide the detailed description and a timeline. The timeline should be within 2 years of the date of application. So looking for 2-year projections. In your objectives, keep your objectives brief, just a few words. Add the detail to your objective description and activities area, as well as your brief project summary. And then to edit applications after they've been saved, click on the objective name in blue. So if you've filled out objectives, you're coming back later, and you want to edit, you need to click on that objective in the objectives column that's blue, and then it'll bring up that edit form. Okay, so after objectives, you're going to go down to the budget form. Again, you'll click Add. You have to complete the objectives form first before you work on the budget form, because when you click Add in the budget, the options for your budget form objectives will be those objectives you filled out in the objectives form. So if you have 3 objectives that are build the building, buy the equipment, and finish renovations or something like that, those are the 3 objectives that'll show up in your budget form. And then list each cost separately. If you're doing construction and purchasing equipment, have those separate. However, if you're buying equipment, you don't need to list each piece of equipment separately. You can combine those in one line and then put an Excel document with the breakdown of your costs and attach the cost quotes for your equipment. Okay, so here's some examples of budget forms. Example number 1, they are doing a build out on their leased facility. The first cost description is plumbing. They also have electrical work, and they have an objective of purchasing equipment, and they're going to purchase a walk-in freezer. So they're going to ask for $10,000 in GTA funds to purchase that walk-in freezer, and then they're going to use cash match of $5,000 each of plumbing and electrical. So they have $10,000 in GTA funds, $10,000 total in cash match. The total cost of the entire project is $20,000. This is a good example. Very straightforward and simple, and there's at least a dollar for dollar cash match. So if funded, all these objectives and cost descriptions will carry over to your status report, payment requests, and contract budget forms. So make sure that it's accurate. To edit the budget, go ahead and click again, blue objective names on the left-hand side. Let's say you've worked on your budget and you want to delete an objective after it's been saved. Then you're going to click on, again, that blue objective name, and then you'll click on the red X delete button in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, budget form example. we're going to talk about in-kind match. In-kind contributions should be calculated at the actual market price of services rendered. A maximum of 10% of the match can be in-kind. No more than $25 per hour can be counted, no matter the person or what kind of services they're contributing. You need to list the name of the individual contributing in-kind matching funds and the estimated numbers to complete the work, and then double check your totals. So, for example, again, we have a similar walk-in freezer, plumbing, and electrical from the prior example, but now $1,000 are going to be provided of carpentry services by the owner, John Doe. He's going to do 50 hours of $20 an hour work for $1,000 in in-kind match. So that $1,000 is not more than 10% of the matching funds, and we still have a total of $10,000 in match, which matches dollar for dollar the $10,000 in GTA being requested. Again, total project is $20,000. So this is would be another adequate example. Okay, so we've looked at two different types of budgets. Now you're going to look at adding, telling us where the funds are coming from. So you would click Add, and your first line should be Growth Reg, because we know you're planning to use Growth Reg funds in your project. So the first line, you'll put in Growth Reg as the source. The status would be requested. The use of funds should match what you're asking for in the budget. That could be purchase of equipment or equipment and construction, something like that, and the amount. Then you click Add for each additional source of funds. If you are requesting other state grants, please include those so that we are aware and know that you're aware that you cannot match other state grant funds. But we do want to know if they're participating or if you've been funded or have applied. Other state grant funds don't count towards the match requirement, but they can help demonstrate your project viability. So this is what the form looks like. Once you click Add, fill out the source, the commitment status in the drop-down menu, use of funds and amount, and then click Save once completed. Okay, so here's an example. Provides a snapshot of all the funding for the project is coming from and where it's going to. We've got Growth Reg on the first line, got a bank loan that's been approved for the facility build out, and for example, a Big Sky Trust Fund grant for some architectural and engineering, and it just states that it's been requested, indicating that an application has been submitted but a final funding approval has not been received. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. Now we have the financial attachments form. At this point, you will have filled out your cash flow and balance sheet projections, and there is a Growth Reg cash flow statement and balance sheet template. It's provided several places. I'd recommend going to the funding opportunity or to the Growth Reg website to download that Excel document. Other formats will not be accepted. If you have questions or need assistance, contact the Small Business Development Centers, Food and Ag Center, or your local economic development organizations for assistance. Okay, so the financial attachments form is going to request prior year financials. If you are a true startup and have absolutely no sales to date, then you do not need to include this. But if you even have 6 months of sales, even 3 months of sales, include a spreadsheet with your financials to date. Attach a copy of your business plan, any bid or cost quotes. If you have more than one bid or cost quotes for your project, you can either merge them to become one PDF document, or you can attach them into the attachments form, which is the next form. So then the next is the attachments form. So if you have say multiple bids, you can put the additional ones here. So you'll just click add. There's no limit to the number of attachments. You could have 5, you could have 20. You can attach other items of note besides the cost quotes. If you have letters of support, if you have pictures, maps. I will make a note here, if you have a project that is being submitted on behalf of tribal government, request that you include a tribal resolution with that to make sure that we have indication of the governing body's support of the project in the application. You could also include pictures of your product, anything like that. Anything you would think would be helpful for a reviewer in understanding your project. Okay. All right, so coming down to the very end here, the last form is the application certification form. Okay, so you're going to enter the name of the authorized representative that is going to submit the application. If say you're a staff person and your company president needs to submit the application, you can call us if you need help registering an additional person. You can even register them, but use their email address so that they will get the username and password. That's like an electronic signature when they enter in the username and password. So it's very important that the authorized person is the one that fills this out. Then need to make sure, again, we talk about the credit check release form and have a checkbox for that. So that must be received by the deadline. So before November 1st at 2 p.m., that must be received. So usually say when you're starting your application, get this part done and over, submit it, and don't wait till the end. Okay, let's talk about a couple things on the certification form. Make sure that you are aware of what is being certified. Confidentiality. Please do not attach information you consider confidential online. If you have information that you consider confidential that's requested by the application or you think should be provided to the council, please email gta.mt.gov email address provided to notify us, and then we'll work with our legal counsel to review your request for confidentiality. And then it also states that as the responsible agent of the applicant, I hereby submit this growth through ag application and understand that any information provided to the Department of Agriculture in this application or other correspondence becomes public information. I waive any right to confidentiality. This is a public program funded with public funds, so anything provided in the applications is considered public information. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know and we can answer that in more detail. Okay, a couple of final items to note. They stated any applications from a tribal government to assist a tribe or to assist a tribally owned business should include a tribal resolution. Make sure to attach a scanned copy, fax or mail that. Select application details to view your entire application together. Click print to PDF if you want to save your application or print for your records. Before you hit submit, there's a couple of things to do. Number one, have someone else read your application. Submit your credit check release form. We talked about that. And submit for your application online. Oh, didn't have the right date here. That should say October 25th for material verification check, and that date is on the website. So when I talk about have someone else read your application, this doesn't even have to be somebody very involved in your project. Just making sure that it's understood what you're trying to accomplish, it makes sense, and they can point out if there's any spelling issues or something that doesn't quite make sense. Submit your credit check release. You don't want to go through all of this work and not submit that and have your application rejected. And then to make sure that you have opportunity to take advantage of the optional material verification check, that should say submit online by the 25th. So let's go back to that here. Okay, so now we have that corrected on the screen. So to submit your application, make sure you've selected Mark as complete, that button on each form. Then you can click Submit. You will receive a confirmation email. If you don't receive a confirmation email, please check your spam and junk mail folders. If you did not receive a confirmation email and you're certain it was submitted, please email staff@gta.mt.gov to check. We can verify if we received your application. Again, I want to make sure this date is correct. And then the final deadline is November 1st at 2 p.m. Okay, once submitted, you'll not be able to make any changes. So make sure that you have submitted that information before October 25th. We will work with you if you need to upload or make a change that we've noted, and then the final deadline is the 1st. Okay, so after you submit, what's next? We'll go over a couple things. The staff will review your applications, all of the applications submitted for minimum eligibility criteria. You can make sure you've submitted all of those mandatory items, including the credit check release. Then it'll be sent to the Agriculture Development Council. That is an outside council of producers and food processing company folks. There's 7 members, and they will do review and scoring based on the following criteria in areas. Basic business considerations, does your business have the proper setup? Agricultural impact, economic impact, notice these have more points associated with them. Potential for success, innovation and originality, and geographic considerations for a total possible score of 40. All right, what's next after this? Oh, looks like I did not update the dates. So apologize for that. The correct dates are on the website. We will be doing a two technical assistance calls in October. The material verification check will be in October 25th. The deadline is November 1st. In December, the council will meet to review, and in December, notifications will go to all applicants, either inviting them to come and present to the council or letting them know that they did not make it to the next round of review. Tentatively, the presentations to the council have been scheduled for the first week of February. And after that, by the end of February, notifications to the successful applicants will be awarded. Okay, so resources. Here's the websites and some of the information that was referenced several times. The Growth Through Ag funding opportunity, the website, and the program background. Okay, with that, questions? Let me unmute our participants. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I think I've just about everybody unmuted. Do we have any questions at the end of the webinar?
Angie, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
My first question is, the owner of the company or someone who's got decision-making authority at the company has to sign and commit at the end. So that sort of seems to me that as a new Food and Ag Development Center, we would jointly develop this grant with the business client, and both of us would have to be signed up and registered in fundingmt.org. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So if we help someone build the application, I'm not going to be signing for the CEO or the owner of the company. I want them to sign it when it's all done.
Yes. That would be the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted, that was a major one. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is do that aspect of it. That doesn't seem appropriate to me, so thank you.
Yep. Good question, Paul. Thanks. Other questions from the participants? Has this been helpful? Answered some questions for you? Is there anything we didn't answer?
I have a question. This is Melissa. For the location address, is that where we are processing everything or where we're selling it?
I'd say whatever makes most sense for you in describing where your project's located. If you have two different locations, then I'd recommend, putting both locations on there.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the
Hi,
question.
this is Eileen. I have a few questions.
Yes, please.
Hi. Firstly, are these forms available in hard copy so we can prepare everything before we start the input?
That's a great question, actually. So there is a PDF of a sample application. So if you go into the Funding MT site and you click on that funding opportunity that has all the information in the deadline, at the bottom there's some attachments and links, and one of them is a sample application form in a PDF that you could print off. And if you're more of a paper person, want to kind of have it all to the side and kind of be checking and getting things ready, absolutely, you can do that.
Okay. Let's see, I had a couple other questions. Do you have full applications of the winners in recent years, or you just have the summaries?
On the website, we just have the summaries.
Is there any way that we could get access to applications that have been successful?
If you want to request that, you can send me an email and I'll run that through our public information reviewers. But that's possible. I would say, though, that I typically recommend folks just develop their own application, because copying someone else's could be problematic unless you're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, it wasn't to copy, it was just to see what approach they took to be successful. And then a few other questions. For the 0 to 10 points that you can get regarding economic development, is that solely job creation, or are there other aspects that can include?
No, not necessarily. It's beyond jobs. It could be an overall impact to your region. One example would be Strix Ag and Chester. They are purchasing from 250 producers around the state. So that's not a job, but it is economic impact. So, whatever, if you feel that there is any additional economic impact of your project, include that in your proposal.
Okay, my last question is, do you have the data on the number of applicants and the percentage that have been successful, and
yes,
the amount that has been requested versus the amount that has been awarded? Yes.
If you want the exact numbers, I can email them to you. My email address is what was on there, gta@mt.gov.
Right.
But okay. In general, over the last 3 years, the number of applications and the amounts requested have been 2 to 3 times the amount available to be awarded. So that has typically meant that maybe half of the proposals are funded, and so many of the ones that are funded partially, maybe don't receive all of the funding that was requested, which actually brings another note. So proposals can be, the council has has full purview to either fully fund a project, partially fund, or not fund at all. And they also get to decide what percentage of grant or loan awards are made to each project. So I would say if you are interested in the loan, make sure to state it in your proposal that you are very open to the loan funds. And if you have a major concern of receiving a grant versus loan, maybe state that at the very bottom of your brief project summary. And then that may be really clear if you have several other loans or a large loan, construction loan, in your sources and uses of funds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great questions.
Hi, Ange. This is Susie.
Hi, Susie.
Hi. The financial projections and those worksheets, is that included in that PDF that you were talking about with Eileen?
No, those are separate. The PDF is of the full application. It does state where the financial attachments that lists each of those, but the forms themselves are not in that PDF, mainly because I don't want people filling out on those forms. I want them to actually use the Excel and Word forms for the financial projection and the key financial assumptions. But they are referenced on that form, so then I'd recommend just grabbing those separately.
Okay.
Good question, Susie. Thanks. These are good questions. This is the time to ask. So if you have questions, let me know. Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, I don't need to hold you on the line. If you do have another question that comes up, something that wasn't clear to you, feel free to send me an email. I'll go bring my email address back up on the screen. Email is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. The phone calls are difficult. I will say also, as we get between that material verification check and the deadline, I will probably not be answering the phone because there's really no way for me to, the voicemail fills up faster than I can listen to it. But if you have an urgent issue, email your question or issue to me, especially if you're having a technical issue. But I'll give first priority to reviewing those applications that submit by the early material verification, and anyone having an actual technical issue submitting the application. So plan early, work on your applications early, don't leave things till the last minute, and we wish you all the success in working on your applications.